Why are you on live? I thought you were preparing. What the? Thanks for embarrassing me. Thank you. Thank you. I will get back.
Check. Check. All right. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana. I'm coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. It is about 9:30 p.m. where I'm at right now, Sunday, December 29th, 2024, doing our daily reading of the news. And I have a few stories that I wanted to get to over the week that I didn't get to. Like I always say, in my channel, whenever I do these streams, but we're going to cover them today. I got quite a few stories I really want to jump into, and I'll be reading all the comments in the chat section. So come in, rock with your boy. Let me know what you think about this stream, and let's get into it. So, first thing that I saw on the news today, generally when I woke up and started checking what was on the internets, I saw this horrible story. So let's read to it. What to know about South Korea's worst plane crash in decades. A plane carrying 181 people crashed while landing, killing most on board. Officials were investigating a possible malfunction with the landing gear and a bird strike. Now, this is a horrible situation that's happened to people, and this should always just remind us to be thankful for the lives that we have, because life is fleeting. It could end at any moment for any of us. So this was written by Cho Sang-hun, Jin Yu-young, and Yan Zhuang, reporting from Seoul on December 29th, 2024. A passenger plane carrying 181 people crash-landed on its belly on Sunday at an airport in South Korea, hitting a barrier and exploding into an orange fireball in the worst aviation disaster in the country in almost 3 decades. Nearly all of the people on board the plane, a Boeing 737-800 operated by Jeju Air, were killed, officials said. The plane 7C-2216 had taken off from Bangkok and was landing at Muan International Airport in South Korea's southwest when it crashed around 9 a.m. local time. Officials said the plane had broken into so many pieces that only its tail was identifiable. The plane was carrying 175 passengers and 6 crew members. As of Sunday evening, the official death toll had risen to 179, according to the National Fire Agency. Only 2 people, crew members who were rescued from the aircraft's tail section, survived. What caused the crash? Officials were investigating why the landing gear appeared to have malfunctioned and whether birds had struck plane or if bad weather had been a factor. Ju Jong-wan, a director of aviation policy at the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, said at a news briefing. Rohan said hello. Shout out to Rohan as well. Shout out to Rock Ray 13 reporting in from India. Namaste. So, as the plane was landing, he said the airport warned it about a potential bird strike. The plane issued a Mayday alert shortly after, he said, then crash landed. The muddy tidal flats near Muan International Airport and much of the west coast on the Korean peninsula are favorite resting places for migrant birds. Photographs and local media showed flocks of birds flying near the airport on Sunday. Going to Rohan, love from Pakistan. Salaam alaikum wa rahmatullahi barakatuh. Salaam alaikum wa rahmatullahi barakatuh. So yeah, this is crazy that a bird can cause this much tragedy for people in South Korea. Poor people in South Korea, man. Imagine your loved ones are flying on a plane and a goddamn bird flies into the engine and fucks the whole shit out. Anyway, so footage broadcast by NBC TV showed one of the engines briefly emitting flames as it neared the airport. All right, Rohan said, "You from?" "I'm from the United States of America, unfortunately, from Louisiana, baby." Anyway, Kim Ee-bae, the chief executive of Jeju Air, said at a news conference that the plane had no history of accidents and also had no problems during routine maintenance checks. The plane's landing gear appeared not to have dropped down from underneath, and the flaps on its wings apparently were not activated for landing, said Keith Tonkin, the managing director of the Aviation Projects, an aviation consulting company in Brisbane, Australia, who reviewed video of the crash. The aircraft was essentially in a flying configuration, he said. That meant it was most likely flying faster than it would normally be in a landing situation. Crashes are often caused by multiple factors, which can take years to uncover in-depth investigations. So this was South Korea's worst passenger plane crash in decades. Sunday's crash was the worst aviation accident involving a South Korean airline since a Korean air jet slammed into a hill in Guam, a U.S. territory in the Western Pacific, in 1997. That crash killed 229 of the 254 people on board. It also appeared to have been it also appeared to have been the first fatal crash Jeju Air, a low-cost South Korean carrier that was established in 2005 and flies to dozens of countries in Asia. 2 days earlier, the plane involved in the crash had been flying to Beijing from Jeju, a Korean island south of the mainland, when it had to divert to Seoul, according to the flight tracking site Flight Radar 24. The diversion was caused by a medical, not technical, emergency on board, according to the Incheon International Airport Police Corps. After that, the plane flew 10 flights between South Korea, Malaysia, Japan, China, Taiwan, and Thailand without incident, according to Flight Radar 24, before Sunday's morning crash. All right? So, Adisto said, you is crazy, and you is retarded for not knowing how to have proper grammar. But shout out to Adisto for jumping into the chat. And am I crazy? I think I am. Anyway, these are the people here. The chief executives of Jeju Air are standing here, and they're bowing an apology ahead of a news conference on Sunday in Seoul. Man, these guys, I don't know, man. Shout out to Ozzy as well, jumping into the chat. He said, good afternoon, Simon, and chat. Shout out to Ozzy as well. Let me know what you think about this plane crash that happened in South Korea. All right. Rock Ray 13 says, bro, you talked current affairs. Am I talking current affairs? Yeah, this segment is called Reading the News. This is what I do every day on my channel. So yeah, we're talking about the current affairs in South Korea. We're going to jump into some other stuff soon, and we're finishing up this article on Korea. But let's go. Let's go right here. So in 2021, the South Korean authorities investigated Jeju Air after one of its planes flew despite having a defect, according to reports in the domestic news media. A tip of one of its wings was damaged during a landing, but the crew failed to notice the damage and the plane took off again, the Korea Herald reported. Last year, the airline received a safety grade of A, or very good, from the South Korean Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport's annual review of domestic airlines. The score is based on the number of accidents or near accidents. The highest grade any airline got that year was A++, and lowest was B+. I just got to say this, man. You know, a lot of these airlines, man, they'll do anything to make a profit because apparently running an airline company is very, very hard to make money on. So a lot of these airline companies, you know, they'll sometimes cut corners on safety just to put a plane in the air, because the more people you can fly, the more money you can make. And that's a shame, you know, but that's a symptom of capitalism as well. Like in capitalism, anything for a buck, right? So going to the last part of this story here, the Boeing 737-800 has a strong safety record. The Jeju airplane that crashed was a Boeing 737-800, a model that is used widely around the world and is a staple of low-cost airlines. There are about 4,400 Boeing 737-800s in service globally, according to Cirium, an aviation data provider. That's about 15% of the passenger planes operating globally. The plane in question is very safe and has a good safety record, said Najmeddin Meshkati, a professor of engineering at the University of Southern California, who has studied the safety history of the Boeing 737 line. It was possible that the plane's landing gear did not deploy because of a maintenance problem, he said, though he said he would not rule out a bird strike as a cause. Mr. Meshkati said the Boeing 737-800's landing gear was well designed and had a history of reliability. So once again, this is a tragedy, what happened in South Korea. Shout out to the people that survived. Shout out to the families as well. This is absolutely horrific, man. And we all should be glad, you know, for the life that we have today and also for the life we have tomorrow. This is going to be a consistent message I give out on my channel. Let's not forget people every day lose lives unjustly, unfairly, and we need to be thankful for life. And if you believe in God, you should pray to God every day that we have life. But speaking of God, speaking of somebody that people think is God, let's talk about the blonde-haired, blue-eyed bimbo, Donald Trump, and what he had to say about the whole MAGA civil war that's happening. So Trump weighs in on immigrant visa debate, but offers little clarity. He said in an interview that he had used the visas for skilled workers many times. Many times. MAGA, are y'all reading that? Many times. But he has mainly used visas for unskilled workers like housekeepers. Now, I want to ask y'all something. For all the MAGA people out there who basically worship this man and basically want to suck his cock, I want to ask you all this. Trump is using visas for people at Mar-a-Lago, for people on his golf courses, for people in his hotels and apartments and stuff like that. What happened to giving Americans jobs? Are you saying the only people qualified to sweep the floor in Mar-a-Lago are Ecuadorian immigrants? Are Mexican migrants? Are those the only people qualified to work at Trump Towers, cleaning the toilets? Why don't he give those jobs to Americans? Oh, I get it. You're okay with the hypocrisy of the blonde-haired, blue-eyed bimbo that you worship as your demigod. As long as he just gives you the psychic benefits of feeling like you own the libs. Not giving you actual anything tangible, just a lot of psychic benefits and word of mouth bullshit that you can pass on to make yourself feel important. To feel like you're a part of something of this stupid ass MAGA movement. Let's go here. I find this so hilarious that people in the MAGA world were going off on Elon Musk, going off on Peter Thiel, going off on all the billionaires who were saying like, oh yeah, we need the H-1B visa. Elon Musk was tweeting, I'm willing to go to war over the H-1B visa against all the MAGA people. And then Elon Musk on Twitter was saying that the MAGA people who are racist are going to get banned and stuff, as if they weren't being racist for the past year and a half since he bought the website. And he himself was being racist against all different sorts of people, but particularly black people. He said he was willing to go to war against MAGA over the H-1B visa. And all the MAGA people were like, fuck you, Elon, we're going to kick you out. And what does Trump do? Trump says, I'm going to side with my billionaire buddy and basically admit the truth that Americans are pretty much too stupid and unqualified to work in tech or even work on my golf courses or in my Mar-a-Lago estate. It's so hilarious. It's so hilarious how MAGA continues to get trolled and rolled over by their own sick demigod. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. And I can tell by the polls looking here, because I'm looking at the poll right here, that there's some Trump dick suckers in the House. All of the options in the poll basically tell me, no matter what you vote for, you want to suck that man's cock. And you're a Trump dick rider. Anyway, continuing here. This article was written by Ken Benzinger, published on December 28th, 2024 for the New York Times. And what does it say? It says, President-elect Donald J. Trump appeared to weigh in on Saturday on a heated debate among his supporters over the role of skilled immigrant workers in the U.S. economy, saying he had frequently used the visas for those workers and backed the program. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. He told the New York Post, I've been a believer in H-1B. I have used it many times. It's a great program. I want to ask y'all this. He says this. Your guy Trump says this. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. Tell me how Mar-a-Lago has a type of job that an American couldn't do. Tell me how any of his stupid ass golf courses has a job that an American couldn't do. What is it? Being a caddy? Being a mopper? Being a window washer? How is that a job that an American can't do? But your guy Trump basically says he wants the Guatemalans to come in and take American jobs. He is a bitch, and all MAGA supporters are bitch-ass bitches. For real, because these guys literally allow this guy to cuck them all the time. It's absolutely hilarious. I'm going to continue here. But his comments, Trump's comments, which were enthusiastically embraced by the technology industry as an endorsement, may muddy the waters because Mr. Trump appears to have been only sparingly using the H-1B visa program, which allows skilled workers like software engineers to work in the United States for up to 3 years and can be extended to 6 years. Instead, he has been a frequent and longtime user of the similarly named but starkly different H-2B visa program, which is for unskilled workers like gardeners and housekeepers, as well as the H-2A program, which is for agricultural workers. Those visas allow a worker to remain in the country for 10 months. Federal data show Mr. Trump's companies have received approval to employ over 1,000 workers through the two H-2 programs in the past 20 years. So for the past 20 years, now listen, somebody's going to say, oh, Trump, he's old, he's doting, he's still the smartest guy, and he's still the right person to represent Americans. This is what MAGA would say. But still, I'm going to say this. How is it any better that he either was too dumb to know the difference between H-1B and H-2B, or either he forgot the fact that he is still giving away American jobs? For the past 20 years, 1,000 people who were not Americans got jobs at Trump properties, cleaning golf balls, and basically mopping the floors of the golden toilet bathrooms. The Trump transition team did not reply to multiple requests for comment seeking clarity on the type of visas the president-elect was referring to in the interview. But it did respond to a prior query about Mr. Trump's position on work visas by sharing the text of a speech he made in 2020 extolling the work of American citizens in building the country, noting that Americans must never lose sight of this miraculous story. While campaigning in 2016, Mr. Trump spoke out against H-1B program, calling it very bad for workers and stating that we should end it. So this guy just flip-flops all over the place. Basically, whoever has the most amount of money can get Trump to say whatever he wants them to say. Elon Musk came with the bag, basically bought this man his presidency to keep him out of jail because Trump was running for his life, and now all of a sudden, Trump loves the H-1B visa. Come on now. Still, the news report on Saturday set off a wave of celebration in the tech industry and among supporters of Elon Musk, the world's richest man who has been an outspoken advocate of H-1B visas. Ian Miles Cheong, a social media influencer with 1.1 million followers on X, posted, "Donald Trump backs Elon Musk on H-1B visas." Mr. Musk, a naturalized citizen born in South Africa who has said he held an H-1B visa, replied to another post claiming the president-elect had come down in favor of the skilled worker visas with one word: indeed. Mr. Musk has frequently stated that the visas are necessary because of a lack of American citizens capable of doing the work required by companies. There is a permanent shortage of excellent engineering talent, he wrote on Christmas Day on X, the platform he acquired in 2022 for $44 billion. I want y'all to read this for yourself. I'm going to drop this in the chat, man, because y'all got to read this for yourself. This is embarrassing for MAGA. Y'all did all that caping for this guy, saying he's going to do the mass deportations, which he won't, because he's just now saying he wants to bring more highly skilled immigrants to America to take American jobs. The guy didn't build the wall in the first time. The guy has been allowing H-2B visas to work on the Trump and Mar-a-Lago properties. So how is this guy really going to get rid of the immigrants? Y'all just did a whole bunch of bullshit to fuck over the country for a guy who's going to fuck over you too. Absolutely embarrassing. Absolutely. Y'all got to read this stuff for yourself, man. So, Mr. Musk has frequently stated that the visas are necessary because of a lack of American citizens capable of doing the work required by tech companies. There is a permanent shortage of excellent engineering talent, he wrote on Christmas Day on X, the platform he acquired in 2022 for $44 billion. Visas for skilled workers have become a highly polarizing topic among Mr. Trump's followers, many of whom oppose all types of immigration and call for the country's borders to be closed. That contrasts with his supporters from Silicon Valley, who have long relied on programmers entering the country on H-1B visas to supplement their workforces. The debate reached a boiling point over the past week as Trump loyalists, including Laura Loomer, a right-wing activist, attacked the visas on social media, calling them a threat to American workers and the country's sovereignty. I foresee this as a national security risk, she told the New York Times. The increasing acrimony on social media between the two camps ultimately led to Ms. Loomer losing her verified status on X, cutting her off from income from her 1.4 million followers. She still had not regained her verified status on Saturday night, although she noted that X on Saturday still charged her the $16 monthly fee for that status. Mr. Musk, for his part on Saturday, made a sexual comment attacking a critic of the visas and then stated that H-1B visas are the reason companies like SpaceX and Tesla are strong. Tesla has obtained 724 H-1B visas just this year. Absolutely. Number one, let's just take a step back here. These are the sick people that are running the show. Elon Musk, who has baby, throwing them in condoms and basically launching it at any female employee at the front desk, trying to make sure his progeny live on 3,000 years from now. The man who probably has like 20 kids hidden down in a bunker, like the highest from Ruthless. Like, this guy is the second in line to the ear of the president of the United States. He's on Twitter making sexual comments attacking Taylor Swift. And that's the guy running the show. I don't know what's worse. That smart people like get no power and dumb people that do, or the opposite. smart people having power and then wielding it in a way that could be against all of us. Because this shit is just, we're living in the worst timeline. We're absolutely living in the worst timeline. We're like internet trolls, incels, the geeks of yesterday who got wedgies in their heads put in the toilets and got swirlies are now running the show. Absolutely crazy. Crazy, man. Anyway, Stephen K. Bannon, a close advisor to the president-elect and a self-proclaimed populist nationalist who opposes immigration, reposted Mr. Musk's comment online, calling the billionaire a toddler. In an interview on Saturday, he said he opposed both H-1B and H-2 visas, claiming that they drove down wages for American workers while increasing profits for billionaires. I think I'm about to become right-wing. I think I'm about to become a full-on fascist Nazi, because I agree with Stephen Bannon. I cannot imagine a universe where Simon Hill keeps it trill, the man who wants to put all of y'all in gulags and re-education camps, the man who wants to shoot the czar in the back of the head, is agreeing with Stephen K. Bannon. I cannot imagine that we're in this world together, holding hands, side by side, united against these billionaire fucks who just basically lie their way into power. Anyway, both the H-1B and H-2 programs are overseen by the Department of Labor, which imposes different rules for each. The skilled worker program currently has a cap of $65,000 per year, a number that technology companies have pushed to increase. H-2B visas, which are for non-agricultural unskilled labor, are capped at $66,000, while H-2A visas for agricultural workers have no caps, but are limited to certain sectors of the industry. From 2003 to 2017, Mr. Trump's companies were approved for more than 1,000 H-2 visas for jobs like cooks, housekeepers, and waiters at his properties. Let's take a step back here. Mr. Make America Great Again, Mr. Let's Build It in the United States was importing cooks. I guess nobody in America can cook now. Housekeepers. I guess Americans now can't fold a duvet. Waiters. Nobody knows how to say, may I take your order? They have to say it in broken English, in Spanglish. How am I on this side now? How am I becoming a Republican at this point? How am I at this point where even I'm looking at this shit like this is crazy? Anyway, so those were the jobs at his properties in Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach, Florida, and the Trump National Golf Club in Jupiter, Florida. The Labor Department data show. In each instance, the companies had to attest that there were no American citizens who could perform those jobs. There are no American citizens that can work in the service industry in Florida. The same state that has Disney fucking land. Are you serious, my guy? The same state where half of the population basically lives in the economy of Mickey Mouse. They make their money getting tickets for people to ride the Harry Potter roller coaster. Nobody works in the service sector in Florida, I guess. We have to import the Hondurans. How am I over here saying build the wall? How am I the guy now? The communist is now saying build the wall. Anyway, his companies continued to hire H-2 workers during his first presidential term, posting applications for visas for 78 housekeepers, cooks, and food servers at Mar-a-Lago in mid-2018. While this nigga was president. While this nigga was president, saying all this shit about we're going to build the wall and Mexico's going to pay for it and we need to, make America great again. This nigga was applying for visas to have the Mexicans work at the properties in Florida. Oh my God, man. Federal records show that Mr. Trump's companies have applied for a dozen H-1B visas since 2019. Since 2019, still, he's doing it. He's still doing it. But that most of those applications for quality control manager positions were subsequently withdrawn. The most recent H-1B application by Trump Media and Technology Group, the company that runs the Truth Social platform, was posted in 2022 seeking a product data analyst with a salary of $65,000 a year. It was not clear if that position is filled. Let's keep this real. The Trump jobs he's given away, $65,000 US. That is well above well above what people make in Louisiana on average. On average in Louisiana, people making $48,000, $50,000 a year. These are not like low-paying jobs. Trump is trying to literally give away good-paying American jobs. In Florida, $65,000 a year is not you balling, but you're gonna be okay. I'm pretty sure that's more than what like the public school teachers make in Florida. So he's giving away like some good-ass jobs to immigrants. Y'all see this paragraph right here. I'm gonna put this in the chat for all the MAGA dick suckers in this motherfucker, man. For real, for real. Y'all are retarded. Y'all gotta be retarded to be rocking with the guy. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. This is how he won the Latino vote. Because deep down inside, the Latinos know the crackers are stupid as fuck. The crackers are so dumb that they'll vote for the guy who says he's gonna make America great again, but really just give the jobs to Jorge, Jose, and Hector. Really? This is an embarrassment. This is an embarrassment, man. Anyway, currently, Mr. Trump's winnery. I'm so turned up I can't even read. Currently, Mr. Trump's winery in Charlottesville, Virginia, is seeking 31 foreign vineyard workers under the H-2A program, offering them $15.81 per hour. Bruh, that's a decent job. That's a decent job, man. You can get some kids straight out of high school, some good American boys and girls straight out of high school that job. But you know what? Trump would rather give it to Maria, Consuela, and who else? Mariela. He'd rather give it to them than to good old American boys. I'm so ashamed. I'm so ashamed. Anyway, so yeah, that's what the demagogue is up to, basically giving away American jobs. Are you tired of winning yet? Are you tired of winning yet, boys? Anyway, that's all I got to say about that retard, man. Now we're going to go to Albania, a place I've never heard of before. And we're going to talk about cocaine. Yes, cocaine trafficking is up, and apparently Albania is the #1 reason for this, because as we know, Albanians never have done anything wrong to anybody, and the negative press that they get in the news is propaganda, of course. A global boom in cocaine trafficking defies decades of anti-drug efforts. The cocaine trade is bigger and more geographically diverse than at any point in history as Albanian traffickers expand the market in Europe for the drug. Now, this is crazy. I just wanted to read this story and really talk about it. So let's get in right here. So this was written by Samantha Schmidt, Arturo Torres, and Anthony Faiola for the Washington Post. I will drop this in the chat, of course, for anybody that wants to read it, if you want to read along with your boy. And I believe it's a free article. Oh, no, I can't do it. I can't drop it. Well, y'all will find it in the description. You know what? Let me put all these articles in the description real quick so y'all can have it, because I forgot to do that before. But let me know what y'all think about this live stream, what y'all think about the polls, what y'all think about the stories, what you think about the visas, what you think about what's going on in this crazy world that we live in, man. Every day, man, it gets crazier and crazier. In this crazy world. I really will read all these stories today. I got time today. Today I got time, cuz. All right, I'm going to drop all these in right now and done. So you should see it in the chat. It should be there. All right. Anyway, let's continue here. So we're going to go to Guayaquil, Ecuador. The drug lord had already escaped the law in 3 countries, and he planned to do it again. In less than a decade, Drayton Rex Heppy had built a smuggling business that ran from the fields of Colombia to the ports of Ecuador and onto the streets of Europe, Italian and Latin American investigators said, rivaling the influence of Mexico's powerful cartels. His brand, carved into cocaine packages, was bello, or beautiful. I remember that word when I was in Albania. Bello, because I remember saying that to that gay guy who was trying to roast me for my takes on what happened in Albania. Anyway, so the Albanians rise from gunman in his home country to transatlantic kingpin is part of a global explosion in the cocaine industry, a trade that is far bigger and more geographically diverse than at any point in history. South America now produces more than twice as much cocaine as it did a decade ago. Cultivation of cocoa crops in Colombia, the origin of most of the world's cocaine, has tripled, according to U.S. figures, and the amount of land used to grow the drug's base ingredient is more than 5 times what it was when the infamous drug lord Pablo Escobar was killed in 1993. and production keeps soaring of cocaine. A record 2,757 tons of cocaine was produced worldwide in 2022, a 20% increase over 2021, according to the most recent global drug report from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. It's going up and up, said Thomas Pishman, a research officer at the UNODC. A few years ago, people were saying the future is synthetic drugs. Right now, it's still cocaine. Listen, man, everything is going backwards, man. We're making movies now about Vaz. We're electing old-ass white men to still lead our countries. We're going backwards in time. People are listening now to like old music. So people are just going to start doing cocaine. They don't want Molly. They don't want, synthetic marijuana. They want them new strands of Kush that you guys keep generating in Colorado. People want good old-fashioned cocaina from Colombia. That's all we want. We want that Medellin, boy. That's all people want. Everybody wants to go back in time. People are becoming more religious. People are going to be reading books more. You know what I'm saying? Trad wives are in style, and cocaine is too. For decades, cocaine consumers were primarily Americans, and interdiction was a U.S. government priority. But despite the tens of billions of dollars spent in the U.S. war on drugs in Latin America, the industry has not only grown, it has globalized with new routes, new markets, and new criminal enterprises. All right. So yeah, here's just a chart. Here's just a chart right here. So global illicit cultivation of cocoa bush in hectares. In Colombia, it's gone up. It's gone up. In Peru, it's gone up. Bolivia, it stayed stable, but hey, it's still pretty high. 30K per hectare. That's crazy, man. That's how much cocaine is getting pushed out there, man. So nearly everyone in Latin America's mainland nations has become a major producer or mover of the drug, with Ecuador now one of the important cocaine transit points in the world. Demand is soaring in Europe, which rivals the United States as the world's top cocaine destination. Cocaine seizures in EU countries grew fivefold between 2011 and 2021 and exceeded those in the United States in 2022. While the United States remains a huge market, cocaine use has declined by about 20% since 2006, according to UNODC. Balkan, Italian, Turkish, and Russian criminal groups have all swept into Latin America for a piece of the action. Few have managed to muscle their way into cocaine trafficking quite like Albanian criminal networks, investigators and analysts say. We know there's not only one channel for cocaine, said Marco Martino, a senior Italian police official in charge of coordinating counter-narcotics operations. But the Albanians, he said, are the best and the biggest. As cocaine production was exploding, investigators said, Albanian criminal networks rode the opportunity it presented. They were critical to getting the drug to Europe and fueling consumption across the continent. So, here's a prison right here. Here's a picture of a prison. The prison where Dritan Rexhepi was held in Latacunga in Ecuador's Copaxi province. I'm not gonna lie, that's a colorful ass prison, man. That shit actually looks fun, low key. I ain't even gonna lie. That looks like a community center in like Detroit. It's like a place where you play basketball after school waiting for your mama to pick you up. That's absolutely colorful. Anyway. Rex Hepi, 44, built much of his empire from an Ecuadorian prison cell, fostering connections with Latin American gangs and turning his cell block into an executive suite. A lawyer representing him in Albania declined to comment. Rex Hepi, in a 2015 appeal, denied any involvement in drug trafficking, either as a perpetrator, accomplice, or accessory. But in 2021, Italy sought his extradition, warning the authorities in Ecuador in a letter from its embassy in Quito that Rex Hepi was the undisputed leader of an Albanian drug trafficking network with global reach and access to infinite quantities of cocaine. Rex Hepi's emergence as a feared power broker with a federal prison in Cotopaxi province was symptomatic of the collapse of government control in Ecuador. But with the authorities in Rome seeking to imprison him for drug trafficking, he decided it was time to move again. A local judge, citing a medical need, ordered him into home detention in an upscale neighborhood here in the port city of in August 2021, according to Ecuadorian officials. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, they basically moved this guy. Here's Mr. Rex Hepi. Here's your accountant that's actually like the major drug dealer. This guy here was playing El Chapo in Ecuadorian prison cells. He was so big that the Albanian government warned Ecuador about him. So Ecuador decides to move him into like his own private home detention, and the guy escapes. Crazy, right? White privilege. Ain't that white privilege? If this was like a Nigerian drug lord, that nigga would have been buried under the jail. White privilege. Anyway, Continuing here. So, predictably, Rex Heppy vanished from the jail that they put him in. This investigation into the global expansion of the cocaine business and the rise of Albanian drug traffickers is based on interviews with more than 24 current and former officials in Ecuador, Colombia, Europe, and the United States, gang members in Ecuador, and thousands of pages of court documents from Ecuador, Albania, and Italy. It reveals how criminal networks led by Albanians infiltrated Ecuador's ports, judiciary, prison system, and security forces to gain control of key parts of the cocaine supply chain and trigger a deluge of the drug in Europe, a more than $12 billion annual cocaine market, according to the EU Drugs Agency. All right, Avery says, here he go, LOL. It's Sunday, my brother. Shout out to Avery Adams as well. Every day we grind it out. You know, we work, we grind it out. I'm pulling myself up by my bootstraps. I'm taking a page out of the Republican playbook. Yes, instead of over here whining and complaining that we poor, that we ain't got no dollars no more, we gonna actually grind and do what the white folks say we should do. We gonna work. Ain't that right? Anyway, continuing here. Basically, the Albanians took over the ports in Ecuador. The Albanians took over the ports in Ecuador and started shooting out cocaine all across the world. All right. So Avery says, yes, bootstraps. I appreciate it. Go Trump. Oh, y'all wildin'. Anyway, continuing here with this story about these Albanian drug traffickers sending cocaine all out across the world. I just got to say this. Just because you trap don't make you a gangster. Just because you trap don't make you a gangster. But you should definitely be scared of a nigga who is wearing a sweater vest. Like this pattern on a nigga like this, that is a killer. That nigga will gouge your eyes out. For real. But just because you trap don't make you gangster. Anyway. With these profits, these organizations managed to permeate all public and private institutions, corrupting any structure, said Ecuador's former anti-narcotics director, General William Villarreal, in an interview. Drug trafficking entrepreneurs from Albania, a country of only 2.8 million people, have begun to rival the world's most powerful cartels by working with them, not against them, transforming how the trade is run. The new networks, investigators say, are often criminal coalitions of disparate and independent groups rather than hierarchical, violently competitive cartels. Europol is aware of dozens of Albanian-speaking clans or organized criminal networks currently operating in Europe. Robert Fay, the head of Europe's drug unit, said in an interview. It's not about how many people you have, said Fatjona Mejidindini. I can't these Albanian names. I can't pronounce these Albanian names. An Albanian analyst with the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. It's about the right alliances you can form. So basically the Albanians are, they don't have violent cartels that compete against each other. It's sort of like a cooperative thing. Honestly, we need to take a page out of that. The niggas need to take a page from the Albanian playbook because they're slumming it up. But basically the Albanians are unified in their criminal enterprise. We should do the same thing. No more Crips and Bloods. Let's just get money together. Anyway, from his prison cell in Ecuador, Rex Heppy paved the way. He befriended leaders of Ecuador's most powerful gang, Los Choneros, who were already working for Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, according to one of the gang's founding members, who, like some others interviewed for this article, spoke on the condition of anonymity because of security concerns. That led to strategic partnerships with both South American traffickers and gang leaders across Europe. His goal was simple. Investigators and analysts said, sell as much cocaine as possible with abundant profit for all parties to deal. Rex Heppy is the pioneer. I mean, it doesn't sound like rocket science. Hey guys, we're gonna trap, and we're trying to sell as much dope as we can. And they're making Rex Heppy to seem like a genius. Come on now, you don't have to be that bright to know if you got a plug on the dope, all you need to do is find a market. Selling dope ain't hard. Selling dope is not hard. You got a plug, you got a market. You just got to get it from A to B. You a middleman, you a broker. It's not that hard to sell dope. But this is the thing about media. The media will make you think that anything a white man does in the criminal underworld is genius. But when black people do same things in the criminal underworld, we're monsters, we're terrorists, we're demons. But a white man who is able to get up here, nice little sweater vest, looking like he'll pay your taxes, looking like the guy at the DMV who's the manager. Yeah, he's the mastermind of the criminal underworld. Meanwhile, if we're talking about any of the niggas who've been selling dope all their lives, oh, these niggas are monsters. They're monsters. Anyway, Soaring cocaine production. The explosion in cocaine production can be traced back to the demobilization of Colombia's largest leftist rebel group, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, also known as FARC. A historic peace deal with the country's government in 2016 ended the longest-running civil conflict in the hemisphere, a conflict in which the United States played a critical role. Since the start of the counter-narcotics and security package known as Plan Colombia in 2000, the United States has sent about $14 billion in funding to Colombia, at least 60% of it for the military and police. The plan focused in large part on combating the country's cocaine production and export, which the FARC controlled, using the proceeds to fund its insurgency and secure territory. Let's make this clear, man. I'm gonna put this in the chat, man, because I don't know if y'all are really picking up what we're putting down right here. Since 2000, we've spent $14 billion, $14 billion on fighting drugs. We spent $14 billion on fighting drugs. We spent $14 billion on fighting drugs. How much do you think every year Americans snort up their nose? We spend all this money fighting the drug war, and yet and still at the same time, those powerful people in Washington are doing the same thing. Didn't Matt Gaetz just get caught recently for snorting coke and having sex with like underage girls? I mean, what are we talking about here, man? This is absolutely insane. It's ass backwards. And also at the same time, all the Americans who are saying like, oh, you know, we need to build the wall and kick the immigrants out and the people from Latin America need to go back home. How about we stop snorting up all the shit that they send to us? How about we stop having a market for that shit? Anyway. The plan focused in large part on combating the country's cocaine production and export, which the FARC controlled, using the proceeds to fund its insurgency and secure territory. When the guerrillas laid down their weapons, a proliferation of smaller armed groups driven by profit rather than ideology into coca-producing areas. These drug traffickers no longer have political interest, said Leonardo Correa, the head of the UNODC mission to Colombia. What they want is to get the drug out as fast as possible to make the most money possible. So here's Colombia, right here. Here's where the cocaine plantations are, all over the country. All over the country. It ain't slowing down. It ain't getting less. More dope getting sold, more dope getting made. Every single day, young niggas stay paid. Come on now. Man, look at all this, man. Look at this. They even got aerial footage. They know where it's happening. They know where the production is getting made, man. It's no secret. This shit is getting flown out. Instead of sourcing coca leaves from fields in the center of the country, Colombia's cocaine producers have created enclaves near the country's borders and coast to more easily export the drug. These enclaves became a one-stop shop for a process that was previously dispersed. Now, the cultivation, extraction, and refining of the drug all happen in the same area before it is moved across nearby borders. 3 of the 4 most productive enclaves border Ecuador. Producers have even improved the plant itself, creating remarkably productive hybrid crops that extract more alkaloid from the same quantity of leaves. The government of Gustavo Petro, Colombia's first leftist president and a fierce opponent of the U.S.-led war on drugs, has vowed to dismantle drug trafficking networks, but has shifted its focus away from the eradication of cocoa crops. Analysts say this has only further fueled cultivation and draw harsh criticism from the incoming Trump administration. The amount of land used to plant coca in Colombia grew by 10% in 2023, but the productivity of that land exploded. Cocaine production grew by 53%, according to the UNODC, as a result. These enclaves, making up 14% of Colombian territory that has cocoa crops, produce about 40% of the country's cocoa. Or coca, sorry, not cocoa. They're not making chocolate, baby. According to the UNODC, this has left other areas of the country struggling to sell their coca crops. So here's a man hard at work right here, weighing plants, figuring out which one he's going to sell to some stupid Americans that want to snort that shit. This one's going to go to Renee Zellweger. This one's going to Leonardo DiCaprio. Okay, we're going to mix these things together and get that shit popping. Anyway. So, continuing here in the story, as Colombian criminal groups industrialized their system, European mafias offered the prospect of new routes to avoid intensified U.S. patrols along Colombia's coast. Europeans started to move in even bigger quantities through countries including Ecuador, Costa Rica, and Paraguay, and onto ships bound for Europe. In Ecuador, a country that does not produce cocaine, authorities seized more of the drug in 2023 than the combined total seizures of Peru and Bolivia, the second and third largest production countries. This year, through mid-December, Ecuador seized 251 tons of cocaine, up from 197 last year. More than 81 tons were destined for Europe, compared with only about 18 that were intended for the United States and Mexico. For just 1 kilogram of cocaine, worth $2,000 or so in Colombia, a drug trafficker could earn $25,000 by smuggling it to the United States, but at least $31,500 of it reached Europe, according to UN and EU officials. In 2022, for the 6th year in a row, EU states reported a record number of cocaine seizures, with Belgium, Spain, and the Netherlands registering the most. Almost 70% of those drug seizures were from container ships that arrived from Latin America. It seems like the periphery countries and the countries in the outer world from the core nations are continuing to be at the service and heel of like neocolonialism, right? Because all these drugs are going basically to the rich nations up north. And meanwhile, these countries stay poor and only a handful of people get rich from the cocaine business. So let's go here. A crucial transit point. It was one of the world's largest single cocaine seizures on record, and authorities stumbled on it by accident. In late January, Ecuadorian military officers followed a lead about a cache of weapons and explosives hidden at a pig farm in Los Rios province. Instead, in an underground cellar, they found 22,000 bricks of cocaine, 22 tons in total, a haul valued at more than $660 million on the European market. The packages were labeled with airline logos: Iberia, KLM, Qatar, Jet2. That's wild. The cache belonged to an Albanian criminal group, according to intelligence officials and Ecuadorian court records. Wow, this is crazy, man. Once again, put this in the chat, man. I'm going to put this in the chat, man. These are astronomical numbers, unbelievable numbers, man. And y'all can find the articles in the description right here, man. In the description. This is not a game, man. They're really out here slinging dope across nations. Transnational dope boys. Transnational dope boys, man. Anyway, go in here. So, for an Ecuadorian government that had nearly collapsed due to drug violence, it was hailed as a major blow to the country's cocaine trade. It also confirmed Ecuador's global role as a crucial transit point and logistical hub for the world's most powerful drug traffickers. Wedged between the cocaine-producing countries of Colombia and Peru, Ecuador became an ideal location for traffickers, investigators said. It had limited coastal surveillance, fragile institutions that were corruptible, lenient visa policies allowing long-term residence for foreigners, and a robust pool of local gangs eager to team up with European groups to transport drugs. Here are the bricks they found right here, man. Here are the bricks, packages of cocaine, 9.4 tons, 9.4 tons of cocaine, all stamped up, packed up, ready to go. Damn. All right, the country also boasted a thriving shipping industry. Ecuador is the principal exporter of bananas to Europe, and a free trade agreement with the EU led banana exports to grow by 40% since 2017, according to EU figures. The banana shipping business, making up more than 2/3 of exports leaving Ecuador, provided an ideal form of transit, investigators say. In 2023, about half of the cocaine seized in containers in Ecuador before departure to Europe was hidden in banana shipments, according to Ecuadorian authorities. The January seizure at the pig farm also illustrated the Albanian trafficking model, intelligence officials said, with third-party associates contracted for each link in the cocaine supply chain. Colombian armed groups handle the production and transport across the border, and Ecuadorian gangs take it from there. To move the 22 tons of cocaine, for instance, one gang, Los Lobos, transported the drugs to the underground cellar, according to an intelligence official with knowledge of the case. According to Los Choneros, another, Los Choneros, was tasked with guarding the drugs, while a third, Los Lagartos, was supposed to smuggle the drugs into the port. Finally, Los Chon killers were to ensure that it left hidden on a designated container ship. The escape artist. Rex Heppy arrived in Ecuador around 2011, part of a wave of Albanians, many of whom had deep ties to criminal groups in Europe, investigators said. Ecuador was beginning to emerge as a transit hub in the cocaine trade. Residency was relatively easy to acquire, and there was little difficulty for foreigners in acquiring property and setting up companies, Ecuadorian officials said. Rex Heppy, who had multiple false identities, landed as a Greek businessman, investigators said. The son of grape farmers in Velche, an Albanian mountain village. Rex Hepi came of age as Ponzi schemes in the late 90s sparked a devastating economic collapse in Albania. Military armories were pillaged, leading to the rise of criminal gangs that made parts of the country lawless. Everyone had guns in the village, said Rex Hepi. Uncle Arben Jalpaj, 64, who runs a bar in Velce, said. The adults and the kids. Rex Hepi quickly rose within the ranks of one network with continent-wide ambitions, Albanian officials said. He was arrested in 2006 in the late 1990s slayings of police officer and a bystander. In an act that turned Rex Hepi into a household name in Albania, he escaped on the day of his arrest from a police station in the seaside city of Durrës by simply opening a door with a faulty lock in a basement interrogation room. He waltzed out, telling police officers he encountered that his interview was finished. Interesting. Absolutely interesting story. I didn't know that. I went to Durrës. Little did I know it had such a gangster history. And this is the city where he's from, Velce. And yeah, this reminds me of Berat as well. I mean, this is what Albania is like. Big mountains in the middle of the country, man. It's the Balkans, baby. So yeah. So let's go here. He's seen as a smart, brave, and willing to take risks, said an Albanian law enforcement official who spoke on the condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to speak publicly. In the years that followed, the Albanian, Rex Hepi, became one of Europe's most wanted criminals, pursued from one to another. He was arrested on drug trafficking charges in the Netherlands and extradited to Italy, where he was sentenced to 13 years in prison. In 2011, he and two other Albanians broke out of jail near Milan after using contraband saws to file down bars and rappelling out of a window on an impromptu rope made from tied bed sheets. Months later, he was arrested in Spain, but extradited to Belgium, where he was wanted for his role in a violent robbery years earlier. But the low-security Belgian prison was no match for Rex Hepi. Once again, he escaped, this time by scaling a prison wall. We gotta lock this nigga up in America, man. Because in Europe, I guess in Europe, man, they just lock niggas up on golf courses, man, behind picket fences. How the hell you were able to escape out of like multiple jails in multiple different countries? But staying in Europe was becoming increasingly untenable because of the risk of another arrest, and Rex Hepi fled to Ecuador. Rex Hepi built his network by making use of legitimate front companies, according to Italian prosecutors. He started establishing ties to Ecuadorian businesses that would help him build up his smuggling operations and launder money. One of his associates, an Albanian diplomatic vice consul in Ecuador, held large shares in food and cannabis companies, according to public records and an Ecuadorian intelligence analyst who has studied the network. In just a few years in the city of Guayaquil, Rex Hepi and his cohorts built a sophisticated drug logistics system, buying off port staff and shipping companies that allowed them almost free access to containers heading to Europe, investigators said. He formed alliances across the spectrum of criminal groups in the country, they said, by selling Europe as a new open market where everyone could profit. The law, however, caught up with Rex Hepi again, and in 2014 he was arrested in Guayaquil, charged with drug trafficking, and eventually sentenced to 13 years in prison. The prison system in Ecuador was largely run by the gangs, and Rex Hepi continued to build his business, investigators said. His uncle, Jalpaj, said his nephew claims he was falsely accused and that he was simply running a seafood business in Ecuador. In a 2015 appeal, Rex Hepi, using the fake name Mutaraj Lulezim, accused Ecuadorian authorities of confusing him with another man and depriving him of his freedom in an unjust way without a single piece of evidence against me or a single photo that proves any trace of participation. My only sin, so to speak, is that I am an Albanian citizen and I came to this country because of the publicity abroad promoting investment. So, here are the security forces in Ecuador displaying all the bricks of cocaine they found. Crazy amounts, crazy amounts. Here's more from Ecuador. I mean, this is what the war on drug gets us, man. Militarism, fascism gets us closer to the midnight hour. Descent into lawlessness. In September 2020, following a 5-year investigation, hundreds of officers across Europe conducted a large sting against Rex Hepi's operations, arresting 20 individuals in Italy, the Netherlands, Germany, Greece, Romania, Hungary, Spain, Albania, and Dubai. Italian authorities sent a series of letters to Ecuadorian officials urging them to begin extradition proceedings against Rex Hepi. In one 2021 letter from the Italian embassy, which was reviewed by the Washington Post, diplomats warned that Rex Heppy organized transatlantic drug shipments and ordered the murder of rivals, thanks to a dense network of complicity and corruption from prison using all types of communication systems. But Rex Heppy had his own plans. In August 2021, a Guayaquil judge, Diego Poma, granted Rex Heppy house arrest for medical reasons with an ankle monitor, according to the court order. Days later, the judge ordered the removal of the ankle monitor and instructed Rex Heppy to report to the authorities every 15 days. The judge was later dismissed by the country's Judiciary Council, which found that he had violated the independence of judicial servants in several decisions benefiting powerful drug lords. Poma, in his disciplinary process, denied wrongdoing and said he followed all legal protocols and made his decision. Bakula Baka says, Simon says, what up? Nothing, man, just chill. Reading about Albanian drug traffickers sending cocaine all over Europe. You know, those good people that in Albania that I don't know anything about. In 2023, Rex Heppy's release was denounced publicly by presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio as another example of Ecuador's descent into lawlessness. Several months later, Villavicencio, who promised to take on the country's narco gangs, was assassinated. He was killed. I think y'all remember that. Anyway. So here's the city of Guayaquil, which, by the way, man, looks like a beautiful city. Guayaquil is seen from the Cerro Sarita Ana. Yeah, this looks like a beautiful city, man. It's just such a shame that, you know, drug trafficking and the war on drugs has made these places, you know, very dangerous for citizens and tourists going there. Anyway. By then, it had become clear just how much power Albanian drug traffickers wielded in Ecuador. Another prominent Albanian drug trafficker, Dritan Gika, had established a sprawling web of business and political connections investigators found, allegedly under the protection of Ecuador's head of police. Some European intelligence officials said the suspect, Gika, may be part of Rex Heppy's network. In January, Ecuadorian gangs unleashed a wave of violence that targeted the country's institutions and media. The country's new president, Daniel Noboa, responded by declaring a state of internal armed conflict against the gangs, mobilizing the military to bring control to the country's cities and prisons. The government has since touted an 18% drop in the murder rate, but kidnapping and extortion have continued to rise. And human rights organizations have accused the government of arresting thousands with little evidence of due process. The drop in killings, said Renato Rivera, coordinator of Ecuador's Organized Crime Observatory, is not a response to the militarization, but rather to the peace processes and criminal alliances between gangs. Despite the president's declaration of internal armed conflict, the country's most powerful criminal structures, such as the Albanians, remain exactly the same, he added. These transnational groups have not really been affected, Rivera said. New markets in Africa and Asia is the continuing part of this, but I just want to give a brief part right here, brief little sidetrack. You know, once again, it's so crazy how, you know, when white people are doing criminal things, they get glossy write-ups in the Washington Post, New York Times. If this were a Black American gang who were going into Ecuador, exporting drugs and stuff like that, this article will be written like we were monsters, like we demons and that sort of stuff. But because these are, you know, nice white Europeans, and they just so happen to look like this guy, Rex Heppy, who is El Chapo himself, committing heinous crimes across the world, running in and out of jails, basically being a vagrant, they get the benefit of the doubt. It's just not fair, man. It's not fair, man. But hey, we're just going to continue to read the news, read these stories, and give our takes on it. Let's go right here. So, new markets in Africa and Asia. The cocaine lords continue to adapt, diversify, and flourish. As law enforcement authorities in Europe have intensified interdiction operations, particularly at major ports in northern Europe, drug traffic appear to be shifting to other points of entry. The Netherlands and Belgium, home to the largest ports in Europe, seized about half as much cocaine in the first half of 2024 as they did in the same period last year. Spain, which has continued to seize record amounts of cocaine, appears to be surpassing Belgium and the Netherlands as Europe's most important gateway for cocaine. Sweden and Norway also reported record cocaine seizures at ports in 2023, according to the EU Drugs Agency. Germany saw its cocaine seizures double between 2022 and 2023, according to the UNODC. Traffickers are increasingly using labs in Europe to process cocaine or to separate it from other materials used to conceal it. The EU reported dismantling 39 cocaine laboratories across member states in 2022, up from at least 16 in 2019. One lab, discovered by authorities in Spain in 2023, was turning out 200 kilograms, almost 450 pounds of cocaine every day. Now they're making cocaine in Europe now. I mean, shit, now you'll be able to get it delivered to your door. You'll have it like Uber Coke Hub. New markets beyond Europe continue to open up in response to the surface of cocaine. Australia reported the highest annual prevalence of cocaine use in the world, according to the UNODC. The wastewater data suggests most cocaine consumers only use the drug occasionally. In early December, Australian authorities seized over 2 tons of cocaine, the country's largest ever seizure of the drug. Just days earlier, the Colombian Navy announced the capture of 6 narco subs carrying more than 225 tons of cocaine, including one carrying 5 tons of cocaine to Australia. I mean, man, look at this, man. This ain't flour. That ain't sugar, baby. That ain't iodized salt. That is pure Colombiana, Medellin, Bogota. For your nose, that booger sugar, baby. That shit that made Rick James make Super Freak. In July 2023, authorities in Hamburg, in Germany, discovered a shipment of 12 tons of cocaine hidden in a container of black sesame seeds that left from Paraguay, man. Man, the game is real. The game is real outside. White folks love tooting up their nose, don't they? Potential manufacture of 100% pure cocaine in Colombia in tons, it's going up, baby. Going up. Potential manufacture of 100% pure cocaine. Look at this. 2010. Look at where we are now in 2022. This is just 2022, man. The game is real. The game is real. While data for Asia is limited, cocaine consumption and seizures, it has also noted increases in seizures in India, Malaysia, and the Philippines, suggesting they could emerge as growth centers for traffickers. If Asia's rates of consumption were to someday align with Europe's, the number of regular cocaine users there could shoot up to 2 million to over 40 million, according to the UNODC. It's the kids of the upper classes who take it, Peichman, the UNODC research officer, said. The potential is there. There is a young generation there. The young generation has money, and the young generation goes to parties. Cocaine seizures have also reached record levels in Africa, where the Brazilian criminal group Primeiro Comando da Capital, or PCC, has expanded its presence and used several countries, including Mozambique, Angola, and Cape Verde, as stopovers for shipping cocaine to Europe, according to the UNODC. Albanian criminal groups have reportedly begun establishing networks in Australia, exploiting weaknesses in the country's immigration system and capitalizing on a burgeoning market with high cocaine prices, according to the Australian officials. The Albanians have been able to perfect their operations just about anywhere, Mejdini said. There's no limit for them anymore, Mejdini said. The model they have created to forge alliances, to cooperate with other foreigners, it helps them go everywhere. Wherever there is demand, they are going to be the delivery guys. Some analysts speculate that Turkey, where officials reported a 45% increase in cocaine seizures between 2020 and 2021, could become a crucial corridor for moving the drug east. I've been to Turkey, and I gotta say this. It looks like the Turks are on drugs, because you'll never see people stay up so much as you will see in Turkey. I went to Turkey, them boys were partying all night till like 4 or 5 a.m. and they kept it going. I've never seen a country that operates like that. Turks stay tooted up. The Turks stay tooted up. And I'm not surprised that they caught 45% increase in cocaine seizures from 2020 to 2021 in Turkey. That's where authorities found Rex Hepi in November 2023. They found him in Turkey, 2 years after he was released from prison in Ecuador. He was arrested in response to extradition requests from Italy and Albania. The kingpin had traded one life of luxury for another after arriving in Turkey on a Colombian passport. How the hell he get a Colombian passport? Under the alias Benjamin Omar Perez Garcia, and settling into a white villa in a seaside suburb of Istanbul, authorities said. He remains behind bars in Turkey for now. So that's the end of the story right here. Once again, absolutely astounding what's happening right now across the world with cocaine production and the Albanians involved and everything like that. Man, it's just crazy, man. I didn't know that all of this was happening around me. Now to the story that I've been waiting to read for a long time, and this might be a long stream, but this story is short. Hopefully, we're gonna blow right through it. This is the story that I've been meaning to get to all week, but I didn't get a chance to. So I'm gonna read it right now. We're gonna power through. The war killed her dreams. To survive, she treated its fighters. Trapped in Sudan's brutal civil war, a young woman chose to work in a clinic on the front line, treating civilians and combatants. She had to navigate suspicion from both sides. So shout out to the sister right here. The red niqab is fire. Red niqab is fire. The red niqab is fire. She looks like she's in the background at like a weekend concert. You know what I mean? Like, that's sick. Red niqab is sick. I ain't gonna lie. So anyway, this was written by Declan Walsh, and it was published on December 26th, 2024. So at a makeshift clinic in Sudan's battle-torn capital, a determined young woman rushed to save fighters and civilians alike. She had no formal medical training, but as beat-up cars skidded to a halt outside the clinic's door, disgorging the wounded, she did her best to treat them, stanching gunshot wounds, changing dressings, improvising blood tests with her cell phone. Drones buzzed overhead, snipers perched on rooftops, explosives struck the clinic, and more than once the woman, Amal Abdelazim, thought she was going to die. The war has remade her. I'm a different person now, she said, days after escaping the city. Was the generation that was supposed to save Sudan. They thronged the streets and toppled a dictator in 2019 in a moment of audacious hope that promised a sparkling future to wash away the decades of stale autocracy. Miss Abdelazim, then in college, attended one protest. We needed a new Sudan, she said. But the old Sudan returned quickly, and with a vengeance. The civil war that erupted last year between rival military factions not only split a giant African nation in two, it also derailed an entire generation, forcing young Sudanese to make painful choices as they navigated a war that few wanted. Democracy activists picked up guns to fight alongside the soldiers they once despised. Artists set up food kitchens. Lawyers collected rape testimony. Millions fled Sudan. So, man, it's crazy what's happening in Sudan right now. Look, you know, everybody's focused on what's happening in Gaza, but what's happening in Sudan is an absolute tragedy, travesty, man. I've reported on this channel before what's been happening in Sudan. And essentially, man, there are these two guys who wanted to be the leaders after they got rid of Omar Bashir, I believe that was his name, the leader of Sudan, right? And the two sides basically are fighting it out. It's kind of real simple, but it's also split along ethnic lines and racial lines because Sudan is like a sort of black African nation, but you also have people there that identify as Arab despite their dark skin tone. And yeah, they're waging somewhat of a racial war against the black people in Sudan. That's me oversimplifying it, but it's still sort of a major tragedy that, you know, Sudan has been reduced to this, man. Such a beautiful country, too. I wanted to visit a long time ago, man. I hope I can in the future. But millions more, like Miss Abdelazim, who was 26, had to stay. She was trapped in a neighborhood that had fallen to the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, the fearsome paramilitary group that is battling Sudan's military for control of the country. Such areas are the conflict's blind spots, so dangerous that even local reporters dare not venture there. She had no money to run, and the war quickly presented a series of excruciating choices. It split her family. One brother was detained by the RSF, while another brother joined them. It forced her to choose between food and safety, and she felt buffeted between the two sides, patching up fighters while being targeted by them, viewed with suspicion at every turn. One morning at a joint, a young RSF fighter brusquely demanded to know why Miss Abdelazim insisted on wearing a niqab, the face veil that showed only her eyes. Was she spying for the other side? He tugged the veil from her face. Enraged, Miss Abdelazim grabbed the fighter's rifle, turned it around, and pointed it straight into his face. I wanted to shoot him, she recalled, blinking through tears, but I couldn't. That's fire. She's fire. She's fire. Shout out to Miss Abdelazim, man. She's hard. She's hard. Grabbed the gun out of his hand and said, bitch, what? Anyway, let's continue here with the story. Saucepan helmets. Miss Abdelazim knew what it was to struggle. She had grown up on the western edge of the capital, Khartoum, where the urban sprawl blends into the desert, in a family of working-class strivers who prized education. She graduated with first-class honors in laboratory sciences in 2020. After college, she also began to wear the niqab, a decision that horrified her mother. Miss Abdelazim said she had always been strong-willed, but she gave herself easily to stories, devouring thrillers, philosophy, and internet culture that fed her restless curiosity. She loved frothy American sitcoms like Friends, although she didn't approve of how the characters slept around. She preferred the pop stars and television shows of South Korea, whose culture she saw as more innocent and sweet. She taught herself the rudiments of Korean from YouTube and got her first passport in 2022 in the hopes of traveling to the country. So it sounds like this girl here is like any other, young, teenage, zillennial, Gen Z girl, except she grew up in Sudan. She's over here obsessed with like BTS and like Friends, and she probably knows like a few pop songs that have like 1 billion views on YouTube that I have never heard of before. But she also loves the niqab, and she loves the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, listen, we live in an interesting world, interesting time, man. Shout out to her, man. Shout out to her. But a year later, war broke out, and those plans were shelved. At first, she stayed out of it. Fighting was concentrated across the River Nile in downtown Khartoum, and her neighborhood in Omdurman was relatively quiet. For people that don't know where Sudan is, because we have a lot of people that don't know geography, you know where Egypt is at the very tip of Africa on the northeast? Yeah, Sudan is right under it. It used to be a part of this country, South Sudan, but they split in like 2011. And here's Khartoum, major city as well. All right, so going back here. But then government warplanes bombed an RSF base nearby, scattering fighters across the air. They ransacked homes, stole cars, and broke open a prison in search of recruits. Beggars were executed by fighters who accused them of spying for the military. When thunderous gunfire erupted outside her family's home, she cowered under the kitchen table, gripping a stick against potential rapist. Her mother wore an upturned saucepan on her head to protect against bullets. Ridiculous, I know, Miss Abdalazim said, chuckling at the memory. In fact, the joke was on the RSF, she stated. It turned out that the fighters were firing in the air to celebrate reports they had killed Sudan's military chief, which turned out to be wrong. The war closed in on her family. Miss Abdelazim's mother fell sick and died suddenly. They started to run out of money. She sold her laptop and phone for a pittance to an RSF fighter, but he was killed before paying the full amount. She grew desperate. Miss Abdelazim heard about a job at a makeshift private clinic in an abandoned clothes factory near the front line. She took it. I figured it was better to die from bullets than from starvation, she said. Horrible story, man. Make this girl's life story a movie, man. Make this a movie. A small team of medics ran the clinic, offering to help wounded fighters for money and local residents for free. Most fighters arrived with gunshot wounds, Miss Abdelazim said, while some had been stabbed in disputes or injured in car crashes as they careened through empty streets. A majority of the fighters in that area were Libyan, she said, one of numerous foreign countries in a war that has drawn mercenaries from Africa, Russia, Ukraine, and even Colombia. They drank a lot, she said. She learned on the job, treating wounds and dispensing drugs, but also drew on her training to set up a laboratory for blood samples, improvising tests with a technique that used the flash of her cell phone camera. Many fighters had syphilis and other sexually transmitted infections, she discovered. Ugh. That clinic's work turned into a target for Sudan's military, she said. When she went onto the roof in an effort to grab the weak cell phone signal, she removed her white lab coat to reduce the risk of being hit by drones firing bombs. All right, Trader Todd USA says, word up. Shout out to Trader Todd. Anyway, continuing the story here about this young girl in Sudan, helping the people who are affected by the horrible war that's happening there. And continuing on in the story here. Hold on, let me flip that camera around. So nearly half of all the hospitals in the capital area have been damaged in the war, targeted by both sides, according to a recent report from the Yale School of Public Health. Sometimes Miss Abdelazim earned as little as $2 a day, but she also found purpose in the work, especially when injured children were saved. A strong camaraderie developed among the besieged medics, driven by the adrenaline that comes from living on the edge. To be honest, it could be fun, she said. After close calls, it made us appreciate life. Now, going to the section about brothers right here, man. But once again, man, we have to appreciate life that, we're not living in these war zones. I know I say this all the time, man, but the people in Sudan are struggling, people in Gaza are struggling, and we're over here on our computers chilling, man. We should be glad that we're not in these types of situations, man. Say hamdulillah. Say hamdulillah. Say hamdulillah. Anyway. To help feed the family, her 21-year-old brother Yassine took odd jobs, but that raised the suspicions of RSF fighters who beat and detained him 3 times, he said in an interview. Once he escaped by ambushing an RSF guard and throttling him. I didn't look back, he said. But another brother, Mohammed, 25, joined the RSF. Mohammed had always been trouble, Miss Abdelazim said, and in the war fell in with a group of RSF fighters who roamed their neighborhood. He was assigned to an internal RSF unit charged with reining in the widespread car theft, made the group unpopular, she said. Then Mohammed looted his family's home, she said, walking out with a fridge and a TV, brushing past his sister as she implored him to stop. The violence drew dangerously close. The clinic pharmacist died, she recounted, after a bomb hit the bus she was traveling in. A friend who was a nurse said she was nearly raped by an RSF commander. The clinic shut down after being struck by a volley of drone strikes. One day, Miss Abdelazim was visiting another hospital when Libyan mercenaries rushed in carrying a seriously wounded fighter. A doctor did his best to save him, but after some minutes, one fighter, apparently believing his comrade could not survive, pulled out a gun and shot him dead. In the heart, Miss Abdelazim said, crying softly and kneading her hands as she spoke. You can't kill someone just because there's no hope, she added. Where is God in that? It was the final straw. Gathering up her last belongings and 5 family members, Miss Abdelazim boarded a bus for Port Sudan, 500 miles by road to the east. At a checkpoint, Sudanese army personnel held up the bus while they interrogated her about the medicines in her bag, suspicious she had aided the other side. Exile to Casablanca. Perched on the Red Sea, Port Sudan is the Casablanca of Sudan's war, a place where people from across Sudan blow in, seeking shelter or fortune or travel papers, enabling them to flee the country as quickly as possible. The wealthier ones lounge by the sea in the evening, drinking coffee and dangling their feet in the Red Sea. But Miss Abdelazim and her family couldn't afford any of that. So here's the Red Sea right here in Port Sudan, which is on the coast. You feel me? Very interesting, man. Some of them Sudanese looking like they need some of these. I'm saying, man. Sudanese mummies. Okay, all right. Anyway, continuing here in the story. Continuing on. The main market in Port Sudan in April. So looks like Port Sudan is generally peaceful. I mean, people are out doing business. You get what I'm saying? But also people are trying to leave. So Abdelazim and her family found lodging in a sweltering university hostel crammed with 1,500 displaced women and children. That's where we found Miss Abdelazim a week after her family arrived, remonstrating loudly about the poor conditions. Flights regularly erupted between the women who hailed from across Sudan's ethnic and social divides, she said. Children played in dirty corridors, flies buzzed in toilets, food was scarce. She had been reunited with an older sister at the hostel, a bittersweet moment because the sister had attempted suicide weeks earlier following a difficult divorce. They all had to move again in December when the authorities shifted the dormitory residence to a tented camp a few miles away. On a video call, Miss Abdelazim offered a tour of the desolate encampment, which had a single toilet for 200 families. She was grateful to be alive, even if her family had joined the sea of 11 million Sudanese displaced by the war. If she had learned one thing, she said, it's that we're no good guys in war. Both sides committed numerous atrocities, yet she couldn't bring herself to hate them or even to root for one side. In the end, they're all Sudanese, she said. I feel sorry for them. That included her brother, Mohammed, who days earlier had called saying he had had enough of fighting in the war and wanted money to get out. She barely had enough to feed herself and her family members. Still, she clung to the idea of saving him. He's stupid, I know, she said. He's irresponsible, I know. But she added, he's still my brother. So that's the end of the article. I know I should have read this earlier, man. But shout out to the beautiful people of Sudan, man. We want peace in Sudan. We want peace out there, man. Like what's happening there is a tragedy. It's been going on way too long. And those countries like Dubai and Qatar or whoever else is funding one side of this war need to stop, man. They need to stop. They need to let the people have democracy and freedom. They need to let the people have democracy and freedom. Now, we're not going to read this last article because we're going to put this up for next time. I'm going to do this next time. I know I say this all the time, but I've been on here for about an hour and 20, hour and 30 or so, so I'm going to let y'all breathe. You feel me? But it's been an interesting time on live. I want to give a shout out to everybody who jumped in here. Trader Todd USA, Bakula Baka, my guy Avery Adams as well. Rock Ray 13, Ozzy, Adisto, Rohan, and everybody else who's going to watch this in the playback. Y'all continue to support your boy. We're going to be reading the news every day, all through 2025, so you can come in and meet me anytime. Just have the notifications on. Subscribe to Backpack Bandits as well. Go watch the movie reviews I'm dropping with my wife, and y'all be easy out there. Peace.